Honestly, if you think there's someone in my house, it's probably this cat. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good overview of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus, which is, in short, looking at a particular subgenre of horror and then picking 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation from you guys, a horror movie that I haven't seen before, check it out for the first time and let you know, is it syllabus-worthy? Is there something about it that makes it worthy of being on the horror movie syllabus? And today, the movie that we're looking at is There's Someone Inside Your House. And this is a little bit of a different recommendation because this recommendation came from Kayla Marie, who I do not know personally. She just has a podcast that she does called I'd Survive, where her and her friend Cassie, who are both YouTube content creators who do like horror reaction videos, they do this podcast where one of them tells the other one about a movie that they haven't seen before. One's seen it, the other one hasn't, and they tell the story of it, they talk about the movie, and then they talk about whether or not they could survive what happens in that horror movie. I really enjoy the podcast. It's relatively new, and every time they've done one, it's weekly, I've known the movie they're doing until this one. They did this one fairly recently. I'd never seen it before. I didn't even know anything about it. And so I decided I wanted to watch the movie before I listened to the podcast, and I'm like, well, it's kind of hard to find time to watch movies sometimes unless it's for the channel, so let's make it a recommendation. Let's make it an Is It Syllabus-Worthy movie. So that's what we did. I went in there knowing nothing but the really great, interesting title, and that Kayla Marie had recommended it because it was from the same director as the Creep movies, which I really, really like. And so that sounded promising. Promising title, promising director, and well, did I love it? Did I hate it? Let's find out. Like I said, the movie that we're looking at today is There's Someone Inside Your House. There's Someone Inside Your House came out in 2021, and as I said, was directed by Patrick Bryce, who is, of course, the director of the Creep movies, Creep 1 and Creep 2. And this movie is interestingly based on a young adult novel by a woman named Stephanie Perkins. I haven't read the novel, and it's the novel. The novel has the same name as the movie, and again, it's a very compelling title and very interesting title, and it had me excited for what I was about to see. Now, if you haven't seen it before, the story takes place in a small town high school setting where a new girl, or relatively newish girl, and her group of friends start winding up having problems because a masked killer is starting to pick people off, and it's impacting their friend group because the people have connections to their friend group, or at least to their school. And this killer wears masks of the victims' faces. And there are all kinds of other things going on, and hijinks abound, but I'm going to go ahead and just stop there so as to not spoil it for anybody. But this movie has a very strong premise and a title. The title is just compelling. It's a fun sounding title. It kind of gives When a Stranger Calls vibes, in the sense of he's calling from inside the house. It's got that kind of idea, and it's a grabber right off the bat. The title drew me in. I wanted to see this movie, honestly, based just on the title. But then, of course, finding out that Patrick Bryce was the director of it gave me some confidence that it might be really, really good. And then the premise is really solid. I really enjoyed this idea of this type of killer that is kind of like at least starts out kind of like a cancel culture killer. Like, the victims of the killer are people who have done something reprehensible or morally questionable, something that the mainstream does not appreciate, does not jive with, and the killer seems to be kind of making a statement by killing these people and exposing these things that they've done that are not good in much of a kind of a cancel culture kind of way. And that's a cool hook for the movie. And it hooks you right away. The opening of this movie is really a grabber. It very much gives off like Scream vibes, right? It's like this isolated house in the middle of nowhere. It's a guy, he's by himself, and there's kind of weird things going on, and somebody in the house, I don't know. And then like these pictures start showing up, which kind of gives it a little bit of a Dexter vibe, right? The killer posting pictures of what you've done. It's really, really working for me right off the bat. It's a really solid grabber of an opening that I was in, and then after that initial first kill, we get the introduction of the characters in this high school setting, like the high school cafeteria, and then it's giving me just a dash of like Heather's vibes, and some of you know Heather's like one of my favorite movies of all time, and so it's selling me that kind of like high school social hierarchy thing, and the different kinds of stereotypes or archetypes of characters that you're going to get, but then also kind of slightly subverting them a little bit. So I'm here for all of this at this point. I'm really down with what I'm seeing. I mentioned the killer's masks, and I say masks because the masks change. The killer wears like a hoodie, but the mask that the killer wears is like a 3D printing of the victim's face, which, setting aside the technological ability to do that, is a fun idea. It's really creepy and unsettling when the victim looks up and sees their own face staring back at them as the killer. That's a really cool image, and it's a neat idea that I couldn't remember seeing before. That felt fresh and original to me. And again, I'm vibing with all of this. This is all working for me. The movie's got some biting humor in it. Like it's not a heavily comedic movie. It's not like a horror comedy necessarily, but there's some moments of levity in here that worked for me very well. Like, for example, there's this one girl who's getting attacked, and she has like a racist podcast, and she's trying to claim that she was forced to do the podcast. Somebody forced her to make these racist statements. And it's just kind of funny in the way that it's portrayed, and kind of the vacuousness of it, and kind of the caricature, lampooning the caricature of this racist character. It's funny, it's interesting, but it also, at the same time, is tackling some pretty strong themes. Like, it's tackling, issues of race and sex politics, and it's tackling them head on. It's not shying away from it. I feel like this movie has kind of a Gen Z attitude about this stuff in a way that's very positive, very fresh, and I think would probably really relate well to a Gen Z audience. And I think that's honestly the target audience for the movie. I'm not really the target audience for it, but I love me a slasher, so I'm in. All this stuff working for me. Really, really good. And the movie, not for nothing, has some really solid production values. Like, this is a Netflix movie. I think it's made for Netflix, by Netflix. And again, in addition to Patrick Brice as the director, it's got James Wan and Sean Levy as the producers of this. So it's got a really strong pedigree of quality people behind the camera, on the behind the scenes, like producing it, making it. Like, it's really got a good pedigree of quality making this movie, quality filmmakers. And it's shot really well. It's got some really good locations, and it's not a high budget movie, so it's not like doing a lot of stuff, but it doesn't ever look cheap to me. It looks really professional, clean, good quality. The acting is all solid across the board. I'm not really familiar with most of these actors. Some of them look vaguely familiar, but no, nobody really stood out. And there's not like it's amazing acting, but there's nothing that's cringeworthy about it either. Everybody's doing their job. They're doing very solid acting work. And the kills in the movie are pretty decent too. They're not amazing kills. They're not like wonderfully, amazingly creative, but they're solid. They're decent. I got no complaints in the kill departments. The masks look really creepy, like I was saying. All of this stuff is really coming together nicely. And for like the first, I don't know, half of this movie or something like that, I am doing really well. I'm in on this movie. I'm loving it. But the setup that they've got here, the premise and everything of that, can't be sustained. It does eventually start to run out of steam. The first cracks I notice in this is where the cancel culture, quote unquote, killer starts to be inconsistent with that kind of concept or that ideology. It doesn't really track throughout the entirety of the film. The killer starts off by killing people seemingly because they're, racist or homophobic or something like that. And then, like, at some point, like, somebody gets killed for being a drug addict, and I'm like, And then the kills like start to seem less motivated by cancel culture kind of concepts, and I'm not really quite sure what the motivation is. And all of this is, kind of in service of a final reveal that ultimately felt kind of limp to me. Like, I didn't see it coming, I didn't guess it, but it also wasn't super satisfying to me. Like, when I found out who the killer was, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. I was like, okay, I guess that kind of tracks. There's some exposition to explain the motivation of the killer, and sure, okay. But it really kind of abandoned this interesting theme that they'd started out with, of this, like, this killer who's kind of doing a cancel culture kind of thing, canceling people quite literally because of their beliefs or practices or actions or whatever, and then just kind of like loses that in favor of a surprising reveal that again was surprising but not necessarily satisfying. And the all the surprises that come up in this movie, like there's a main secret the main girl has a secret that, something in her past that she's worried about might be what she gets targeted for, and when it's revealed, it's kind of mediocre. It's not really, it's a little bit guessable, and it's not really all that bad, and you're just kind of, again, shrugging your shoulders, kind of like, it's a little bit let down. And, with the combination of that and the killer's motivation also being kind of meh, it really winds up just being a little bit of a disappointment at the end there. And, even throughout the movie, like, the kills were decent, but the setups for the kills were kind of a little implausible. You kind of had to sustain your disbelief a little bit, which is fine for me in a slasher movie. But then by the time I get to the end, I want to be kind of satisfied and paid off, and I wasn't getting that there. And there's some clunky foreshadowing in the movie too. Like there's this thing with a bell that rings and you open the door, and like you see some of this stuff coming a mile away. Again, stuff that I find generally very forgivable in a slasher movie. But because the ending kind of felt so, lackluster, I start to look back on the movie and go, this should have been tighter, this should have been tighter. Because if you're going to give me an ending that's kind of, mid, I want to have had a tighter time getting there, I guess. I don't know, maybe that would just make it feel a little more disappointing. But I just really wish the movie had kind of kept that thread or that theme going of what the killer's motivations were, instead of worrying about trying to surprise me with the killer's identity. I think that was a misstep in terms of script and in terms of filmmaking in general. Like, somebody at some point should have thought, we've got something going here, interestingly, in the thematic matter, and then we don't follow up on it. It kind of abandons it at some point in the movie, and that's a disappointment. But is it enough of a disappointment to wipe out the good first part of it? Or is it going to be able to still squeak in and be syllabus worthy? Let's find out. So, is there someone inside your house syllabus worthy? No, no, it's not. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed that it's not, because it started out so promising. It had a great title that I was super into, and then it opened really well. And then the world that they were constructing, and the characters they were setting up, and the motivation of the killer, all this stuff was just like sizzling for me. I was really into it. The setup of this movie, the premise of this movie, and the first act, almost two acts of the movie, was cooking for me. I was really into it, and I'm thinking, oh, we've got a winner here, for sure. But then it just doesn't live up to the promise of that initial setup and that premise. It just doesn't get there. It doesn't go over the finish line. And, it's a bummer, because Patrick Brice was really delivering something fresh again. I love Creep. I think it's a great movie. I like the sequel. I like the Creep tapes. Like, I was thinking we had another winner from Patrick Brice here, but again, he couldn't get it over the finish line. I couldn't help but feel disappointed. And it's an interesting point, because I love me a slasher movie, and I'm very forgiving to them. And there's really not much of anything in this movie that I couldn't forgive as a slasher movie, except for the potential. The missed opportunity for this movie to be more than the average slasher. Like, I don't think it would have been like Scream level great, but I really felt like it had an opportunity to have this kind of social commentary and fresh, like, Gen Z modern take on the slasher tropes in a way that would make it feel like a new style slasher movie, kind of reinvigorate the subgenre and do something fresh and original with it, kind of like what Scream did. And instead, it winds up being a merely fine slasher. It's not a bad movie at all. It's just, like I said, the ending felt to me a little disappointed. The first half of the movie, solid winner, and could have gotten on the syllabus pretty easily if it just maintained that level of interesting, fresh, and kind of deep, frankly, ideas that it was presenting. But then it just doesn't do that. It raised my expectations up so high, and then just kind of petered out on like letting the air out of a balloon. My friend Sarah read the book, actually liked it, and said it was pretty good, but said that the ending is different than it is from the movie, which makes me interested, because my biggest problem with the movie is the ending, honestly. So I wonder if the book ends better. Now it's a young adult book, so I don't know, maybe my expectations should have been a little bit different for this movie because of its source material, but at the time I was watching it, I didn't know that it had, young adult novel, humble beginnings, maybe I would have been a little more forgiving to it had that been the case, but without knowing that, I judged it for what it was. And maybe that book's ending is better. Maybe it's worth my time to read it. I don't know, but I think that it's worth at least thinking about checking that book out because there was so much potential in the movie, and if the book met that potential, it might be actually a really good book. But I don't know if I'm gonna actually take the time to read it. So that's my thoughts on There's Someone Inside the House. A lot of potential, a lot of opportunity for something great. They just kind of got squandered at the end, leaving it to be a merely serviceable, perfectly fine slasher movie that's worth the time, but not worth a spot on the syllabus. And now it's time to give a spot to the Horror Trivia Pursuit card of the week. This is a time where I look at a Horror Trivia Pursuit card and try to answer it live on camera, no cuts. So, well, because it's, we're talking about a horror movie that's a slasher film, basically. Let's go with the killer category on the card. Here's the question. Who directed 2016's Hush? I know the answer to this question. And the answer to this question is interesting because there are multiple movies named Hush. There's at least 3 off the top of my head. And they all come out at different time periods, so it's really helpful to have the year on this one because I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this based on the year because it's kind of a process of elimination because the other 2 movies that are called Hush, I can think of one of them is definitely more recent than 2016 and one of them is definitely earlier than 2016. So by process of elimination, the third one I know should be the right answer. And I don't know if this is a helpful clue to you guys or not, but the other 2 movies I'm thinking of, well, actually, no, let's not say it. First, let's let you have an opportunity to lock in an answer on this one. Actually, I kind of forget now. Actually, now that I think about it, there actually only be 2. The third movie might not be called Hush. Now that I think about it, so I'm actually even getting myself confused here. But don't get off your answer. Like I have this habit of talking myself out of the right answer, and I've been doing a good job of avoiding that here on the channel. I think I'm prattling on long enough to give you time to answer. So lock in your answer. I'm going to go ahead and give you my answer. My answer is, of course, Mike Flanagan. He is the director of Hush. And just to double check the card, Mike Flanagan. Yet, I'm going to give me an answer right about the Flan Man. I love him. I love all of his movies. And Hush is a great one. Hush is basically his wife, Kate Siegel, playing a deaf woman who is terrorized by a home invasion person. And it's great. It's a real nail biter of a movie. And the other movie I was thinking of was actually an earlier movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, if I recall correctly. And it's kind of more like a psychological thriller. And here's the thing. I remember thinking it was pretty decent at the time, but I've also pretty much forgotten it. So it's kind of forgettable, I guess. And then the other movie I was thinking of is, I think, called something else. Now that I think about it, it's not actually called Hush. So I almost tricked myself into the wrong answer on this one, but I was pretty sure it was the Mike Flanagan one that they were talking about. So did you guys get it right? Did you know that movie? Have you seen that movie? If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. Check it out. It feels like it kind of went under the radar a little bit, but it also came out at a time when people were checking things out on streaming. And so it did find its audience that way. If you didn't find it, check it out. Thank you very much for hanging out to the end of the video. And thanks to the I Survived podcast for our idea for the suggestion for today. But keep your suggestions coming. I've got a whole list of them I'm working my way through. I'm having a blast doing it. If you come up with something that I haven't seen before, maybe I'll do a video about that one. But until then, I'm just going to say, class dismissed.